comment on developing oral reading fluency. As second grade teachers, we know that's really our purpose. We've got kids who can read, but maybe not as fluently as we hope. So this slideshow is going to share with you 10 different strategies that are research-based. Some of them are things you might already be doing, and now you have research to back up. It's kind of validating the work that we've done. And so to get started, I've given you a handout that lists the different strategies, so if you want to take notes or write down anything, and then if you have ideas that kind of go along with that strategy, it would be great if you shared with the group also. The National Reading Panel describes reading fluency as the ability to read a text quickly, accurately, and with proper expression. According to the panel, reading fluency is one of the 5 major instructional components of reading. However, it is often overlooked. In the primary grade, students must learn to read fluency in order to read to comprehend later in life. Have we heard that before? Yes, absolutely. So reading fluency is the connections between the words students are reading and the comprehension needed to understand the text. Unfortunately, students often struggle to develop oral reading fluency in the primary grades for several reasons, one of those being decoding difficulty and lack of sight word recognition. So this PowerPoint has 10 tips for teachers. The first one being that using repeated reading will increase oral reading fluency. Now, repeated reading is an effective intervention technique that teachers can use to improve oral reading. Repeated reading requires students to read a short text 2 or more times. And this picture here just is an example of a student's growth over time. That I know in our classrooms we ask our students to read and reread very often. I have my students read to their elbow partner from our phonics framework text. But I put a couple of handouts in your folder. The first one is a poetry presentation. This really lets students develop fluency because they can notice the rhyme, and if they reread that to become fluent, they can share it out loud. I did that with my class a few weeks ago, and they got so excited. They even started to try to do silly voices. One of them was British, and one wanted to sound like an astronaut, so he was like holding like this into his hand. But they had a purpose for that reading, and they didn't mind the rereading. They didn't feel like it was a chore. So I put Thanksgiving theme poems into your packet. Some of them are set to the tune of a song. I can remember songs that I heard as a child, and I still know every word. And so songs kind of have that quality about them that help students become fluent, even though they don't realize they're practicing their fluency. All right, and then the next one is a reader's theater, which is people have told, I've heard for years, readers theater is great for developing fluency. Well, now I found in research that it really is a great way. And this is a Thanksgiving theme play.
I love these.
They do. They really enjoy it. So they work on their fluency without realizing that they're doing such a great task. Do you guys have any other ways that you incorporate repeated reading in your classroom?
I think we do a lot of this, like, a lot of times we'll have a song or something that has our focus skill that we're working on, and I'll do the repeat reading at the table or with our partner on the rug, or.
And even with your low group, that landlines that Ms. Rosewarne shared with us, repeated reading of those single words will eventually lead to developing fluency within a sentence and then within a short text. So, repeated reading is a strategy that we incorporate all the time, but we don't think about all the research that's going into prove that really does have an impact for students.
We even send home homework and they repeatedly reading at home at their
Yes, that timed passage. It's another great way. Use an incentive chart to motivate students to reach their reading fluency goals. This is one I haven't tried, but I want to start incorporating in my classroom, is to give them an incentive chart. They will do anything to earn a gumball in my classroom. It's the coolest thing. And I have, with Dibbles or reading fluency, I'll say if you can beat your previous score, how many words you improved, that's how many M&Ms. And so they'll work hard when they know that there's a goal. So teachers and students should work together to set a fluency goal. Casey, could you continue reading that?
Teachers and students should work together to set a fluency goal. Then students should select a prize or incentive to strive for. Students should be given immediate rewards for achieving their goal along with performance feedback. Students that do not meet their goal should be given a smaller prize and feedback along with goal reevaluation.
Right. And that last statement I think is very important. even if they don't meet their goal, they still are going to receive a prize and then feedback. Feedback is huge for students. And so using an incentive to motivate, especially, we track our oral reading fluency already and we're already progress monitoring that, so incorporating a goal sheet for each student, something that they can track personally. I incorporated a goal sheet. Yeah, this is something that I'm going to start using in my class with my kids because it lets them set a goal for each month. And then below it, they can have a personalized goal they can just pencil in. So that way it's not just a blanket. Because some of your kids are already at the end of the year benchmark.
Right.
And it's not fair that their goal for improving is the same for a student who makes leaps and bounds of growth. So
I use a bar graph that I keep in there, and I have them track that way. And
that's a good idea.
it's hard for them sometimes if they have to color down.
Right.
But then you can provide that feedback of, sometimes they do better with the amount of mistakes they made.
Well,
So, you always can find something positive. So.
Right, and one of my students last week, the text that we read for our oral reading fluency was nonfiction. And so her words per minute came down, but she maintained her accuracy. So we had I bragged on her for accuracy, even though she didn't increase her words per minute. So you still are past your goal, you've maintained, and this is a more complex text. So giving students a goal, and then rewarding them for that goal and for the effort with the corrective feedback is super important. And that brings us to tip number 3, corrective feedback. Use the phrase drill technique with corrective feedback to improve oral reading fluency. Now there's not anything in your folder for this one because this is something that you can do with any text. Right? It's best to use one-on-one, and first listen to the student read a short passage aloud, and you note their miscues, almost like a running record. And next, the teacher reads the same passage aloud with the student following along. Okay, so you're going to read as they track. The teacher would then point to each word the student struggled with and give corrective feedback. I do this with Dibbles all the time. I'll say, this is what you said, now listen to me. Here's my turn and your turn. So that my turn, your turn works very effectively because students are hearing a fluent version and then they can mimic that. And with enough practice, they'll develop the fluency to do it themselves. If you have a group of students who are working collaboratively, they can, if it's been modeled for them, they can do it at centers. I like to incorporate that for students. But letting them reread, that goes back to strategy 1, is rereading the same text over and over. So that's one thing I've tried to incorporate in my classroom this year with Daily 5 is opportunities to read as often as possible. Have you guys been able to use a corrective feedback situation in your classroom?
I use that a lot with Dibbles.
That's the thing. When I was researching all these different techniques for improving oral reading fluency, I found I do that. I didn't even know it had a special name, and I had all this research to back it up. It's just kind of best practice for reading instruction. Alright, teacher tip number 4 is use easier material for oral reading fluency practice. A lot of times in PSC we would recommend give students an easier passage, and we drop down to the 1st grade level if it was a 2nd grade student. Students that struggle with fluency will not be able to build fluency with texts that are too complex. And I think about myself when I'm trying to read something that is, even the Bible, sometimes if I'm reading a King James Version, I have to read it 3 or 4 times before I really understand what it means. But if I drop back into New King James or one of the other more standardized versions of the text, it's easier for me to read and comprehend. So students are the same way. Give them a less complex text with words that they can decode easily. The more they read that simple text, the more their fluency build, and then you can bump them up gradually. There are many resources, such as Reading A to Z, that have printable level text. And I have that pulled up for you. Reading A to Z is a website that does have a fee, but you get like a year's license for $99 with unlimited copies and downloads. And so if you have, like the week that we did Johnny Appleseed, I searched Johnny Appleseed and it had 5 or 6 different texts all on different levels, and I printed them, made book sets, and that was our text that we read for the week of the table. But if you use their reading levels, 2nd grade should be about a K or an L right now to be kind of where they need to be on task. So if you look at that text, it has multiple ways that it can be printed. It can be printed as a book. You can just project it and read it whole group. There are comprehension questions and lessons that go with each. Usually there's vocabulary slides. So there's lots of resources here. There's also like passages for running records. So anywhere your students are, if you have an advanced student, you can give them a higher level text. And so there's literally hundreds of texts at that level. So it's very helpful for students who have a particular issue. You can find their level of text and then give them a challenge. You can search by topic, reading level, and I use it all the time. Also in your packet I included some text that was shared with me from the Title I teachers. And it has the most complex text first and it goes backwards, E to A. So those are great tools to use. It has the words per minute. And they're even more of a simple text than the level 1 or first grade level of oral reading fluency. So I've used that with some students that I know that are going to Title that need that even lower text.
Yes.
I think the first one's even a poem. It's very repetitive. Right. Teacher tip number 5 is use assisted reading strategy to improve reading fluency of struggling readers. Assisted reading relies on ample reading practice to improve fluency. This strategy can be used one-on-one or a small group setting. The teacher reads to the students to model appropriate fluency. The teacher and student track the text and reread text to build fluency. Assisted reading strategy is just what we do all the time. I didn't know it had a fancy name with a real strategy attached to it, but sitting with a student, reading one-on-one, having them track while you read, that does improve their fluency, right? Having our basal story, they're tracking as you're reading or they're listening to the tape, they're hearing that fluent version. When they get to a word that they don't know, if they are tracking, their eyes are seeing it, their hand is touching it, their ears are hearing it, it's very multisensory. And so just because it's not fancy, it doesn't require anything to be used with any text, that's what makes it one of the best strategies is because it is so easy to implement. Okay. Tip number 6 is very close. It's use audiobooks to increase reading fluency. Students benefit from listening to books read aloud via recordings. Okay. I incorporated a listening center. That's one of the daily 5, listen to reading. And so on our iCan poster it says I can listen to a book on Epic. You guys familiar with Epic? Listen to a book on tape or CD. It was very hilarious trying to teach them to use a tape player with cassettes. It was very funny. They had never touched one or seen one before. Follow along with your finger. That tracking is very important. That's the multisensory component. And then also take an AR test. That really is just a way for them to practice with their comprehension. So that is more for our listening center. But they all have headphones. That was one of the things I asked my parents to send in. Everybody has their own little earbuds or headphones. And they have to listen carefully. So audiobooks help expose students to a large variety of text. Stories that they're not able to tackle on their own, they can listen to it. They hear that fluent reading. There are text features and vocabularies incorporated in those picture books even that are very complex that, again, they're not going to be able to read fluently without that assistance. And so while they hear all these complex things, while hearing a fluent reader model phrasing and paucity. That's the thing I think gets left out when students are reading to themselves. You know, they're decoding words, they're getting through it, and they do end up with comprehension, but to build the fluency, they need to hear what it should sound like. And so, and I have a lot of students who'll pick a favorite and they'll go back and listen to that book multiple times because they really enjoy it. And especially with Epic, where they have a lot of nonfiction text on there, they want to learn everything they can about sharks this year. I've got one that's on sharks and one that's on firecrackers, so that's all they want to listen to every day. All right. So, do you guys have any questions about what we've covered so far? All right. Are there any of these that you think you could start using today in your classroom, or that you are already using?
I actually feel this was nice confirmation for me.
Okay, confirmation,
I
what you're
felt
already
like,
doing.
yeah, I'm doing a lot of
Like you're already doing
Yeah.
these things. And that was what was great for me building this list because it wasn't brand new. I didn't have to go out and buy anything. It was things that we already do and we just need that confirmation like you are doing what's right. This is best practice for our students.
There's a tool that you send you the reading A to Z, and I don't know if you've ever heard of ReadWorks. It's
ReadWorks?
free.
Yeah.
It's free and it's all Lexile leveled out, like, and skill-based. And you can actually, put your kids in there and like assign them
Oh, I like that.
questions. And I've sent it home on Remind before, just a link, like, you don't have to do this, but if you wanna practice with your child, here you
All right, I'm
go.
gonna write that down, so it's ReadWorks.
Yeah, but it's nice because you
It's
can,
.org. Is it .org?
yeah,
or not?
readworks.org.
ReadWorks.org.
And it's like author's purpose,
Yeah,
cause
you
and
can-
effect, I
Okay.
mean, it can be very
Very
sequencing.
specific by comprehension strategy.
But it's
I like that.
really good because a lot of it's nonfiction, so.
And have you guys noticed on Accelerated Reader, there's articles that students can read now? Have you seen that?
No.
Why don't pay attention to that?
Like when they log in,
Yes,
they're,
when they log in to themselves, it doesn't help them have points, but my students like it because they can choose the topic and there's a lot of variety for them. It's just so slow today.
Are you saying AR?
Yeah, Accelerated Reader.
so when you click star, it takes you there?
Yes, it's the same thing.
I didn't
Alright, I'm
didn't
gonna
know
log
that.
in as a student so you
That's so
can
fun.
kind of get the feeling of it.
I was like, I thought you had to click Renaissance.
While you're logging into that too, I was gonna, with Epic, the read alouds, I don't know if y'all use them, but I love it because the words like come
Kinda
out.
lift up.
And so if they're not, if they get lost,
Right.
I like it.
Okay, and so this
Oh,
is Renaissance. So here's where they would click to take an AR test, and it just says Accelerated Reader Articles.
I've seen that and I just didn't ever click on it.
I have one student particularly who really enjoys these, and it's kind of helped. But they can browse by the articles by topic. So if they know they want to learn more about education, culture, animals, they move the animals one and the sports one for the boys. You just click on it, and it gives them so many choices. There is a quiz, like I said, it doesn't go onto those points, I don't think. It gives the Lexile level and the
Grade level,
star
grade
level too. So I try to kind of coach them on that. Like if you pick a lower number, it's going to be an easier text for you to read. Because mostly these do not.
Oh, okay, they don't read aloud to them,
Mhm.
okay.
There are a few. I think the lower level passages. That there's pictures, text features, all the things that you would find in a nonfiction article are in this digital version. So all these resources at our fingertips. Alright, thank you guys so much. We will meet again later to finish our list of 10 strategies that will help develop oral reading fluency. Alright, and if you guys happen to try these strategies in your classroom, bring it back and share it with us, okay?
Okay.
Alright,